There are moments when you realize the true weight of what you've been given. Not the obvious weight, the missions, the rescues, the impossible choices, but the deeper burden, the responsibility of holding back a power that could reshape reality itself. My name is Gordon, the timeless adventurer, and this is the story of the day I understood what the architects really asked of me when they gave me Sky. We had been traveling for 2 weeks since Meridian, heading toward a colony with atmospheric failure. The mission seemed straightforward: repair environmental processors, save 9,000 lives, move on to the next crisis. Standard Guardian work, if such a thing existed. But Sky had been restless, withdrawn. She spent hours alone in the observation deck, staring at nothing, her ancient eyes distant and troubled. At first, I thought she was processing Meridian, the 32 names she'd memorized, the weight of those we couldn't save. I was wrong. She was processing something else entirely, something that had been growing inside her since she woke from eons of sleep, something I should have recognized but didn't until it was almost too late. Power. Not the kind you learn, not the kind you train for, the kind that simply exists, fundamental and absolute, waiting for the right trigger to unleash itself. On our 14th day of travel, I found her in the ship's garden, a small space April had cultivated with plants from a dozen worlds. Sky sat cross-legged among the growing things, her small hands hovering over a flower that had died from some fungal infection weeks ago. "What are you doing?" I asked, stepping into the garden. She didn't look up. "Thinking about Kale." Kale, the keeper of echoes from Meridian Deep, the one who had given me the codex and then faded away, becoming part of the archive she'd protected for so long. "I think about her too," I said, sitting beside Sky. She was brave, patient. She waited centuries for someone to hear her stories. "She shouldn't have had to," Sky said, and there was something in her voice. Not anger exactly, but a kind of focused intensity. She shouldn't have had to die. She was important. She mattered. She did matter, I agreed. She does matter. We remember her. We carry her forward. But she's gone. Sky's hands moved closer to the dead flower. And I don't think she should be. Before I could ask what she meant, light bloomed from her palms, soft and golden, like dawn breaking across still water. The light flowed into the dead flower, and I watched in stunned silence as the withered petals straightened, color returning, life flooding back into something that had been dead for weeks. But more than that, as the flower bloomed, I heard a voice, faint, distant, familiar. "Gordon, is that you?" Kale's voice. "Sky, what did you do?" I breathed. She looked up at me, and her ancient eyes held no guilt, only curiosity. I was thinking about her, about how she sounded, how she felt, and then I was thinking about this flower, how they're both just matter and energy, really. And if matter and energy can't be created or destroyed, only changed, why can't death be changed too? The flower pulsed with that golden light, and Kale's voice came again, stronger now. "Where am I? This isn't the echo chamber. Gordon, what's happening?" "Sky," I said carefully, my heart pounding. "You need to stop. Right now." "But she's back," she said, confused. "I brought her back. Isn't that good?" "No," I said, and my voice came out harsher than I intended. "It's not good. Sky, listen to me. It's not something you undo. Kale made her choice. She became part of something larger. You don't get to override that just because you have the power to." Sky's hands trembled. The flower's light began to fade. "But I can feel her. She's confused. She's scared. I did that to her." "Then you need to let her go," I said gently. "Right now, before you trap her somewhere she doesn't belong." Tears streamed down Sky's young face, but she nodded. The light faded completely. The flower returned to being just a flower, alive but quiet. No voice, no consciousness trapped where it shouldn't be. Kale was gone again, back to whatever comes after, undisturbed. Sky collapsed against me, sobbing, and I held her while my mind raced with implications. She had the power to undo death, to reach across the boundary between life and whatever lay beyond, and she was learning to use it, experimenting with it, driven by the pain of loss and the desire to fix things that shouldn't be fixed. The architects had called her a gift, but they'd also warned me. She was more than she appeared, more than even they fully understood. I had 2 weeks to teach her restraint, to help her understand the responsibility that came with that kind of power before we reached the poisoned sky colony.
It wouldn't be enough time. It would never be enough time. We emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the colony system exactly on schedule. Before us hung a world wrapped in sickly brown-yellow clouds, its atmosphere wrong in ways that made my stomach turn even from orbit. Preliminary scans complete, April reported from her station. She'd been quieter than usual since the incident with the flower, watching Sky with concerned amber eyes. The atmospheric processors are producing wrong chemical ratios. Carbon dioxide levels are climbing, oxygen dropping. Within 6 months, the air will be unbreathable. Can we evacuate them? Sky asked. She'd been subdued since the garden, careful around me, as though afraid I'd judge her for what she'd tried. I hadn't judged her. I'd been terrified. 9,000 people, I said, studying the data. The Wanderer's dream could evacuate maybe 1,000 at a time, but multiple trips would take weeks, and there's nowhere close enough to take them. The nearest habitable world is months away at sublight speeds. So we fixed the processors, April said. There are 6 atmospheric processing stations distributed around the planet. If we can repair or recalibrate them, we can restore proper atmospheric balance. What caused the failure? I asked. April's fingers danced across her console, pulling up deeper analysis. Unclear. The processors are old but functional. The failure seems to be systematic rather than mechanical, almost like someone deliberately miscalibrated them. Sabotage. My mind immediately went to corporations, to the kind of exploitation we'd seen at Meridian. But this seemed different, more subtle, less overtly profitable. We need to go down there, talk to the colonists, inspect the processors, figure out what we're dealing with before we start making changes. I'm coming with you, Sky said immediately. I looked at her, small, determined, still carrying the weight of what she'd almost done. Part of me wanted to keep her on the ship, safe from whatever waited below. But she was right about one thing. She learned by doing. And if I kept her locked away every time something was dangerous, she'd never learn to handle her own power. You stay close, and Sky, no powers, unless I specifically tell you it's okay. Understood? She nodded solemnly. Understood. April, you have command. Monitor us from orbit. If anything seems wrong, I extract you immediately, she finished. I know the protocol, Gordon. The shuttle descent was rough. The poisoned atmosphere created turbulence that rattled our teeth and made the hull groan. Through the viewport, I could see the landscape below, once green, now dying, vegetation turning brown and brittle from the wrong air. We landed in the capital settlement, a modest cluster of buildings housing maybe 3,000 people. As the shuttle ramp lowered, I pulled on a breathing mask. The air wasn't toxic yet, but it was getting there. Every breath tasted wrong, felt wrong. A welcoming committee waited, 5 people in environmental suits. Their leader, a woman who moved with the careful efficiency of someone conserving oxygen. I'm Administrator Yuki, she said, her voice filtering through her suit speakers. You're the ones who responded to our distress signal. We are, I confirmed. I'm Gordon. This is Sky. We're here to help with your atmospheric crisis. Yuki's eyes fixed on Sky, surprise flickering across her face. You brought a child. I'm older than you, Sky said matter-of-factly. I just look young. Yuki blinked, then decided not to pursue that line of questioning. Come with me. We've set up a command center. You'll want to see what we're dealing with. The command center was a converted warehouse, its walls lined with monitoring equipment tracking atmospheric composition in real time. The displays painted a grim picture. Oxygen levels dropping steadily, carbon dioxide climbing, trace toxins appearing that hadn't been there months ago. When did this start? I asked. 4 months ago. Slowly at first. We thought it was normal fluctuation, but then the processors started producing wrong ratios. We tried recalibrating. Nothing worked. It's like they're following some other programming we can't access. Have you checked for sabotage? Unauthorized access to the processor control systems? Thoroughly. No evidence of tampering, no unauthorized personnel, no signs of physical damage. The processors are just wrong, like they forgot how to do their job. Sky had wandered to one of the monitoring stations, studying the data with intense focus. Gordon, look at this, the failure pattern. It's not random. I joined her, following her finger as she traced lines across the display. She was right. There was a pattern. The processors weren't failing randomly. They were failing in sequence, starting from the southern hemisphere and moving north. Methodical, deliberate. Whatever's causing this, I said slowly, it's spreading, infecting the processors one by one. April, are you seeing this? Her voice crackled through my comm. I am. Running analysis now. Gordon, this doesn't look like mechanical failure or sabotage. This looks like a virus, but not digital. Something else. Something organic? I asked. Possibly. Or something in between. I'm detecting faint energy signatures around each failed processor, similar to what we saw with the neural transmitter at Meridian, but different. Older, maybe. More fundamental. Older. My mind immediately went to Sky, to the architects, to ancient technologies that predated modern civilization. Could this be architect technology? Something from the old era? It's possible, April said, but I'd need to examine a processor directly to be certain. I turned to Yuki. We need access to your southern processing station, the first one that failed. Can you arrange that? Of course. I'll have a transport ready in 30 minutes. As Yuki left to make arrangements, Sky tugged on my sleeve. Gordon, I can feel something from the planet. It's like a presence, something aware, something that doesn't belong. What kind of presence? I asked, crouching to her eye level. I don't know, she admitted, but it's old, really old, and it's hungry. The transport was a ground vehicle designed for rough terrain, necessary since the atmospheric processors were distributed across the planet's surface, far from population centers. We drove south for 3 hours, watching the landscape die around us. Plants that should have been green were brown. Trees stood like skeletal sentinels, their leaves fallen, their bark cracked and dry. Small animals lay dead beside the road, victims of air that no longer sustained them. Sky pressed her face against the window, watching the devastation with ancient, sorrowful eyes. This is what happens when balance breaks, she said quietly. Everything connected to the broken thing dies with it. The southern processing station loomed ahead, a massive structure of metal and composite materials, its towers reaching toward the poisoned sky like fingers grasping for clean air that no longer existed. The facility should have been humming with activity, processors working constantly to maintain atmospheric balance. Instead, it was silent. We approached on foot, the ground crunching beneath our boots. The station's entrance stood open, and as we stepped inside, emergency lights flickered on automatically, casting everything in sickly green. Atmospheric readings inside are better, April reported through our comms. the structure's integrity is holding, you should be able to breathe without masks. I removed mine cautiously, taking a tentative breath. The air tasted stale, but breathable. Beside me, Sky pulled off her mask and immediately wrinkled her nose. It smells wrong. Like something died and nobody cleaned it up. She wasn't wrong. There was a faint odor of decay, of organic matter breaking down where it shouldn't. We moved deeper into the facility, following signs toward the main control room. What we found there made my skin crawl. The control systems were covered in something that looked like moss, dark green-black growth spreading across surfaces in intricate patterns. But it wasn't moss. As I watched, the growth pulsed with faint bioluminescence, creating patterns that reminded me unnervingly of neural pathways. "What is that?" Sky breathed. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think we found our problem. April, are you seeing this?" "I am," she said, and there was tension in her voice. "Running spectral analysis now. Gordon, that growth is organic, but it's also generating electromagnetic fields. It's literally interfacing with the control systems, overriding their programming." "Is it alive?" I asked. "Define alive," April said. "It has cellular structure, it grows, it responds to stimuli, but it's also broadcasting on quantum frequencies. This isn't just biology or technology, it's both, merged." Sky moved closer to the growth, her hand reaching out. "Don't touch it," I snapped. She stopped, looking back at me. I know, but we don't know what it is or what it does. For all we know, it's infectious. One touch and you could be carrying it back to the ship." She withdrew her hand reluctantly. "But Gordon, I can feel it. It's not hostile. It's just confused, lost. It doesn't know where it is or why it's here." "How can you possibly know that?" I asked. "Because I can hear it," Sky said simply, "not with my ears, but with whatever part of me is really me. It's broadcasting feelings, loneliness, hunger, the need to connect. It's looking for something and doesn't know what." I studied the growth with new eyes. Not a weapon, not sabotage. Something else entirely. Something that maybe got lost and was trying to find its way home by connecting to anything it could find, including atmospheric control systems. "April, if this growth is interfacing with the processors, can we remove it without damaging the systems?" "Unknown," she admitted. "The integration is deep. Pulling it out might destroy the processors completely, but leaving it means it continues spreading, infecting the remaining stations. So we need to communicate with it," Sky said. "Find out what it wants, help it find what it's looking for, then maybe it will leave the processors alone." I looked at her, this ancient child who could apparently hear the thoughts of alien growth. "And how exactly do we communicate with it?" She met my gaze steadily. "I could try, if you'd let me use my abilities." This was the dilemma I'd been dreading since the garden. Sky had power, immense, fundamental, barely understood, and there were situations where that power might be necessary, might be the only solution. But every time she used it, she risked learning habits that could be dangerous, that could lead to exactly the kind of unrestrained reality warping I'd witnessed with the flower. But 9,000 people were dying. The atmosphere was failing, and we might not have another option. "If you try this," I said carefully, "you need to be careful. Don't force anything. Don't overwrite its consciousness like you almost did with Kale. Just listen, understand, and then we figure out together how to help it." Sky nodded seriously. "I'll be careful, I promise." She moved closer to the growth, her small hands hovering just above its surface. She closed her eyes, and I saw light beginning to bloom from her palms, that same golden, dawn-like light that had brought the dead flower back to life. The growth responded immediately. Its bioluminescence intensified, patterns shifting and flowing like thoughts becoming visible. And then Sky gasped, her eyes flying open. "It's not from here," she said, her voice distant and strange. "Not from this world, not even from this galaxy. It came from outside, from the space between galaxies. It was traveling, exploring, and it got caught in this system's gravity, pulled down to this world, and it's been trying to understand where it is ever since." By interfacing with technology? It doesn't understand the difference between technology and biology. Where it comes from, they're the same thing. Everything is both. It saw the processors and thought they were living things. It tried to communicate, to connect. It didn't realize it was breaking things. The growth pulsed brighter, and Sky tilted her head as though listening to something only she could hear. "It says it's sorry. It didn't mean to hurt anyone. It was just lonely, lost. It wants to go home but doesn't know how." I felt an unexpected surge of sympathy for this lost entity, this thing from between galaxies that had ended up trapped on a dying world, desperately trying to connect with anything that might understand it. "Can we help it leave?" I asked. "Send it back where it came from?" "Maybe," Sky said, "but it needs energy, a lot of energy, enough to break free of the planet's gravity and reach escape velocity, more energy than it can gather on its own." I thought about the Wanderer's dream, about the enhancements the architects had given it, about power systems that could fold space and generate shields strong enough to withstand kinetic strikes. "The ship," I said. "We could use the ship's power systems, generate a focused beam that could accelerate the entity back into space. April, is that possible?" "Theoretically," she said slowly, "but it would require bringing the ship into low atmosphere, risky but possible. And we'd need to gather all the growth into one location first. If pieces stay behind, they'll continue interfering with the processors." "Can you do that?" I asked Sky. "Can you ask it to gather itself together, explain that we're going to help it leave?" Sky closed her eyes again, light flowing from her hands into the growth. The patterns shifted, brightened, and then something remarkable happened. The growth began to move, not randomly but deliberately. It pulled away from the control systems, consolidating itself, gathering into a central mass. Throughout the facility, throughout the planet, every piece of the alien entity responded to Sky's call. "It understands," Sky whispered. "It's coming together. But Gordon, it wants to say thank you. It wants to share something with us before it leaves." "Share what?" I asked warily. "Knowledge. It's traveled between galaxies. It's seen things we can't imagine. It wants to give us a gift. A memory of somewhere beautiful, somewhere it went before it got lost." Before I could respond, before I could say that might not be safe, light exploded from the gathered growth, brilliant and overwhelming, not painful, but absolute. I felt myself falling into it, felt Sky's hand finding mine, and felt reality bend around us. And then, we were somewhere else.
We stood, if standing was the right word, in a place that shouldn't exist. There was no ground beneath our feet, yet we weren't falling. No air to breathe, yet we weren't suffocating. No light source, yet we could see everything clearly. We existed in the space between galaxies, in the vast emptiness that separated islands of stars. But it wasn't empty. Not really. "Gordon," Sky breathed beside me. "Look." I looked, and what I saw defied description. The void between galaxies wasn't dark. It was alive with subtle currents of energy, like rivers flowing through space itself. And moving through those currents were things, beings, entities made of light and thought, and fundamental forces that had no names. They weren't ships or creatures in any conventional sense. They were consciousness given form, ancient and vast, dancing through the spaces between spaces in patterns that suggested purpose, meaning, civilization without planets or technology. "This is what it is," Sky said, wonder filling her voice.
This is what the growth really is. Not a plant or a fungus. It's one of them, one of these beings. And it got lost and fell into our galaxy and didn't know how to get back. As we watched, the dance of entities created something beautiful. Energy flows that formed temporary structures of impossible complexity, mathematical precision made visible, art created from the fundamental forces of the universe itself. How long have they been here? I asked. Between galaxies? In this empty space? Always, Sky said, and I realized she was hearing something I couldn't, understanding through her connection to the entity that had brought us here. They've always been here, before galaxies, before stars. They're older than structure, older than matter organizing itself. They're what existed in the beginning and what will exist at the end. I watched these ancient beings dance through the void and felt something close to religious awe. We thought we understood the universe, stars and planets, and the physics that govern them. But this was something else entirely. This was the universe before it became organized, before chaos sorted itself into order. We have to get it home, I said quietly. Whatever it takes. This being doesn't belong trapped on a planet. It belongs here, in the spaces between. Sky squeezed my hand and the vision faded. We were back in the processing station, back in our bodies, back in the material world that suddenly seemed smaller and more constrained than it had before. The gathered growth pulsed with grateful light. It knows we understand now. It's ready to leave whenever we are. I activated my comm. April, we need the Wanderer's Dream. Bring her into low atmosphere above the southern processing station and prepare to generate a high-energy beam on my mark. Acknowledged. Entering atmosphere now. Gordon, what did you find down there? Something beautiful. Something that needs to go home. The Wanderer's Dream descended through the poisoned atmosphere with grace that belied its size. The ship had grown since the architects enhanced it, but I'd never fully appreciated how magnificent it was until I saw it hovering above us, its hull gleaming with those ancient geometric patterns, power radiating from every surface. The gathered growth, the lost entity, had consolidated itself into a sphere roughly 3 meters in diameter, pulsing with eager anticipation. Through Sky's connection, I could feel its excitement. It was going home. After months trapped on this world, interfacing desperately with anything that might help it understand where it was finally going back to the spaces between. Positioning complete, April reported. High energy beam ready to generate on your command. Gordon, I should warn you, this is going to drain our power reserves significantly. We'll need several days to recharge. Understood, but this being has been trapped here for months. We're not making it wait any longer. I looked at Sky, who still had her hands hovering near the sphere, maintaining her connection. Is it ready? She nodded. It's ready. It's saying thank you, and that it hopes we find what we're looking for, the way we helped it find its way home. Tell it we're honored to have met it, and that if we ever find ourselves between galaxies, we'll remember it showed us we're not alone in the empty spaces. Sky's hands glowed brighter, and the sphere pulsed in response. A final communication, a goodbye that transcended words. April, on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The beam that erupted from the Wanderer's Dream was like nothing I'd witnessed before. Pure white energy, so intense it left after images on my vision, connecting ship to sphere with impossible precision. The sphere began to rise, accelerating smoothly upward, carried by focused force that was part tractor beam, part electromagnetic acceleration, part something else that the architects had built into the ship's systems that I didn't fully understand. Up it went, faster and faster, punching through the poisoned atmosphere, leaving a trail of dissipating energy in its wake. We watched through the facility's external monitors as it climbed, through the clouds, through the upper atmosphere, beyond the planet's gravity well. And then it was gone, accelerated to velocities that would carry it back to the void between galaxies, back to the dance of ancient beings that existed before stars learned to burn. Beam terminated, April reported. The entity has achieved escape velocity. It's beyond our sensor range now, but projected trajectory suggests it will reach intergalactic space within 6 months. Good, I said, feeling unexpected emotion tighten my throat. That's good. Sky was crying, not from sadness, but from joy. She's singing, she said through her tears. I can still hear it, getting fainter. But it's singing. It's happy. It's going home. Around us, the processing station's control systems began to reboot. Freed from the entity's interference, automated repair protocols kicked in, restoring proper programming, recalibrating atmospheric output ratios. The facility hummed back to life. Gordon, April said, excitement creeping into her usually controlled voice, I'm reading similar reboots at all 6 processing stations. The entity must have withdrawn completely before launch. The entire atmospheric system is coming back online. I pulled up the monitoring data on my portable scanner. She was right. All 6 stations were restoring themselves. Within hours, they'd be producing proper atmospheric ratios. Within weeks, the air would be breathable again. Within weeks, the damage would begin to reverse itself. 9,000 lives saved. Not through violence or difficult choices, not through sacrifice or acceptable losses, just through understanding, through listening, through helping something lost find its way home. Come on, Sky, I said, pulling her into a hug. Let's go tell Administrator Yuki her world is going to be okay. She hugged me back fiercely, her small arms tight around my waist. Gordon, did you see it? Did you see where it came from? The space between galaxies? The beings that danced there? I saw. And Sky, you did something beautiful today. You connected with something completely alien and helped it when it needed help. You used your power in exactly the right way. Does that mean you're not mad at me anymore? She asked quietly. About Kale? About trying to bring her back? I was never mad, I said gently. Just scared. Because power like yours can do amazing things, but it can also do terrible things if used without understanding. Today you showed understanding. You listened before acting. You helped instead of forcing. That's the difference between using power wisely and using it dangerously. She nodded against my chest. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out what I can do and what I should do. Sometimes they're not the same thing. No, I agreed. They're not. But you're learning faster than I ever did. Come on, we've got good news to deliver.
Administrator Yuki's reaction when we told her the atmospheric processors were repairing themselves was everything I'd hoped for. She stared at the monitoring data in disbelief, then tears began streaming down her face, then she was laughing and crying simultaneously while her staff rushed to confirm what the scanners were showing. Within an hour, word had spread through the colony. Within 2 hours, people were gathering in the central plaza, removing their breathing masks cautiously, testing the improving air, realizing that their world was going to survive after all. They wanted to celebrate, wanted to thank us, wanted to throw a festival for the guardians who had saved their home. I almost said no. We had another crisis marker waiting, somewhere in a distant sector, people who needed help. We should leave, move on, maintain momentum. But Sky looked at me with those ancient eyes and said quietly,
Can we stay? Just for a little while? Just to see them happy? So we stayed. The celebration started at sunset and lasted through the night. Nothing elaborate, the colony didn't have resources for elaborate, but genuine. Music played on improvised instruments. Food was shared from emergency stores that would no longer be needed. Children ran through streets that had been quiet with despair days before, their laughter filling air that was growing cleaner with each passing hour. Sky found a group of children her apparent age and joined their dames without hesitation. I watched her play tag and hide and seek, saw her bright laughter, witnessed her finally acting like the child she appeared to be rather than the ancient being she actually was. "She's different with them," April said, appearing beside me. She'd come down from the ship to join the celebration, her android form moving to the crowd with natural grace. More relaxed, more young. "She carries so much weight," I said. "The architect's mission, the power she doesn't fully understand, the losses at Meridian. Sometimes I forget she's also genuinely young in some ways, old in consciousness, but new to experience. Like you were once, when you first became immortal. Old enough to understand what you'd lost, but young enough to not know how to carry it yet." I glanced at her, surprised by the insight. "You're different too, April. Since we left the beacon, more present, more engaged. Is that part of your evolution? Learning to be not just efficient, but participatory?" She considered the question, her amber eyes reflecting firelight from the celebration torches. "I think so. When I was alone at the beacon, I could be pure function, but now I'm part of something, part of a crew, and that requires more than just executing tasks. It requires understanding why they matter." We stood together in comfortable silence, watching Sky play with children who would grow old while she remained young, who would die while she continued, who would forget her while she remembered every detail. She was learning the same lessons I had learned, that connection was both beautiful and painful, that caring meant eventually grieving, that immortality's curse was watching everything you loved turn to dust. But she was also learning that it was worth it, that the pain was the price you paid for meaning. A young girl detached herself from the group of playing children and approached us, maybe 8 years old, with dark hair and curious eyes. She looked at Sky, then at me, then back to Sky. "Are you really a guardian?" the girl asked Sky. Sky stopped running and faced her seriously. "Yes, I am. My name is Sky." "I'm Hope," the girl said, "and I just wanted to say thank you. My parents were scared. They thought we'd all die, but you saved us." Sky knelt down to Hope's eye level. "It wasn't just us. Your administrators kept people calm. Your engineers kept systems running as long as they could. Your community stayed together instead of falling apart. We just helped with one piece. You all saved yourselves, too." Hope smiled, bright and genuine and heartbreakingly innocent. "Will you come back to visit? I'd like to be friends." I saw something shift in Sky's expression. Not sadness exactly, more like recognition. She was making another connection, forming another bond that would inevitably hurt when separation came. "I'd like that," Sky said. "I'll try to visit if I can, and even if I can't, I'll remember you, I promise." The two girls hugged, and I felt my chest tighten. This was what the architects had meant about Sky needing to learn what it meant to be alive. Not just the power and the responsibility, but the small human moments, the friendships formed and maintained despite inevitable separation, the choice to care, even though caring meant eventual grief. She was learning, faster than I'd expected, but the full lessons were still ahead of her. We stayed at the colony for 3 days, watching the atmosphere continue to heal, helping with final calibrations of the processing systems, ensuring no residual effects remained from the entity's interference. On the third day, we prepared to leave. Sky hugged Hope goodbye with the fierce intensity of someone who understood that goodbyes mattered, that they were how you honored the time you'd shared. "I'll remember you," Sky whispered to Hope. "Always. I'll remember you too, and maybe one day I'll become a guardian like you. Maybe I'll help people too." As we boarded the shuttle, Sky was quiet, processing. When we reached the Wanderer's Dream and settled onto the bridge, she looked at me with ancient eyes that held new understanding. "This is going to keep happening, isn't it? I'm going to keep meeting people and having to leave them, keep making friends and having to say goodbye." "Yes," I said, honestly. "That's part of being a guardian, part of being immortal. You're going to lose people, over and over. It never hurts." "But it's worth it?" she asked. I thought about Kale and Arya, about Chen and Mara, about all the faces I'd known and lost across centuries of existence, about how each one had left marks on my soul that never quite faded, scars that became part of who I was. "Yes," I said, "it's worth it. Because the alternative is not connecting at all, and that's not living, that's just existing. The pain is the price we pay for meaning." Sky nodded slowly, then said something that surprised me. "I'm glad I didn't bring Kale back. I understand now. Death is not something to fix, it's just part of the story. And taking it away would mean taking away the meaning of all the time before." "Yes," I said, relief flooding through me. Trust that the ancient being wearing a child's face understood herself well enough to know her limits. It was the hardest thing I'd done in centuries. "All right," I said, "let's find out what you're really capable of." The empty system April found was truly empty. No planets, no asteroids, just a dying red dwarf star surrounded by nothing but void and fading light. Perfect for what we needed. Nothing to damage, no one to hurt if Sky's experiments went wrong. We set up a testing protocol. April deployed hundreds of sensor drones in a sphere around the Wanderer's Dream, creating a monitoring network that could track energy fluctuations, spatial distortions, anything that might indicate Sky's power affecting reality in unexpected ways. "Start small," I told Sky, "just like with Hope Star. Don't try to affect multiple things at once yet. Let's understand your range first, your precision." Sky nodded, settling into the meditation pose she developed. Light began to bloom around her hands. Target one of the sensor drones. Try to communicate with it, not control it, communicate. Show it your thoughts. See if it responds. Sky's light extended toward the nearest drone, a small device floating 100 meters from our hall. The light touched it, and suddenly, the drone's telemetry flooded our screens with unexpected data. "I can feel it," Sky said, her voice distant. "The drone. Its programming. Its purpose. It's simple. So much simpler than a living mind. Just instructions and sensors and the desire to fulfill its function. I can make it understand something new? Show it a concept it wasn't programmed for?" Sky's brow furrowed in concentration. The light brightened, and then the drone did something it absolutely wasn't designed to do. It began moving in patterns, deliberate patterns, geometric shapes that looked almost like language. "It's trying to talk back," Sky breathed. "I showed it the concept of communication, and it's using the only tools it has, movement and sensor data. It's trying to tell me it understands." "That's incredible," April said. "Sky, you're not just transmitting information, you're teaching, showing the drone capabilities it didn't know it had."
Do you feel any strain? A little, Sky admitted. Like stretching a muscle I'm not used to using, but not painful, not overwhelming. All right, I said. Maintain contact. Let's see how long you can sustain this before fatigue sets in. Sky held the connection for 12 minutes before she began to tire. Not physically, her young body showed no signs of exertion, but mentally, spiritually, the effort of maintaining constant communication with an artificial mind started to wear on her. Enough, I said. Release the connection. Rest. Sky withdrew her light, and the drone immediately returned to standard patrol patterns, its moment of unexpected consciousness fading. But the data remained. Proof that Sky could touch artificial intelligence, could communicate with it, could teach it. How many drones can you affect at once? I asked. We spent the next 3 hours testing. Sky could maintain communication with 5 drones simultaneously without strain, 10 with moderate effort, 20 before the mental load became overwhelming. 20, I said. That's your comfortable limit for artificial minds. But Sky, the Imperial fleet isn't drones. Those are ships with living crews. 15,000 human minds. That's orders of magnitude more complex. I know, Sky said, but maybe I don't need to reach everyone. Maybe I just need to reach the right people, the ones who are already questioning, the ones who saw what happened with the retribution and wondered if their orders were just. That's actually brilliant, April said. Instead of forcing 15,000 minds to see truth, you'd be amplifying doubt that's already there, giving people who want to question their orders the courage and clarity to do it. That's guidance, not control. But how do we identify those people? I asked. How does Sky know which crew members are already questioning? I think I can feel it, Sky said. When I touched the Retribution's crew, I could sense their confusion, their fear, their doubt. Some minds were harder than others, closed off, certain, committed to their orders. But others were open, searching, already looking for reasons to refuse their orders. So, you'd target those minds specifically, the ones already questioning. Give them clarity, show them truth, let them make their choice. Is that easier than trying to affect everyone? I think so, Sky said. It's working with what's already there, instead of trying to create something new, like guiding stellar matter into patterns it was already moving toward. Not forcing, accelerating. We practiced for 2 more days. Sky learned to sense the subtle differences between artificial minds and biological ones. Learned to identify which minds were receptive and which were closed. Learned to touch multiple consciousnesses simultaneously without overwhelming herself. She was getting better, stronger, more confident. But I also saw the cost. After each session, she was exhausted in ways I'd never seen before. Not physically, her ancient nature sustained her body, but drained spiritually. Each mind she touched left marks on her own consciousness, echoes of thoughts and feelings and fears that weren't hers, but became part of her through contact. It's a lot, she admitted on the 3rd day, after affecting 30 sensor drones simultaneously. Feeling what they feel, thinking what they think. It's like I become a little bit of each thing I touch, and when there are a lot of them, I start to lose track of which thoughts are mine and which are theirs. That's dangerous, I said. Sky, if you lose your sense of self while connected to 15,000 minds, I know. I could get lost, dissolve into them, become part of the collective instead of remaining myself. But Gordon, I think I have an anchor, something that keeps me me no matter how many minds I touch. What's that? I asked. You, she said simply. When I'm connected to other minds, I can still feel you. Not like I'm touching your thoughts,
Just your presence, like a lighthouse. Something that reminds me where I am, who I am. As long as I can feel that, I think I can find my way back." The trust in her voice humbled me. She was placing her entire sense of self in my hands, trusting that I could guide her back if she got lost in the collective consciousness she was planning to touch. "That's a lot of responsibility," I said quietly. "You're a guardian," Sky replied. "You carry responsibility for whole civilizations. Carrying responsibility for one person, even if that person is really old and has weird powers, that's just another Tuesday for you, right?" Despite the gravity of the situation, I smiled. "Yeah, I guess it is." "Gordon," April interrupted, "I'm receiving reports from the refugee stations. The Imperial fleet is closer than we thought. They've split into 3 groups, moving faster than projected. At current speed, they'll reach the first refugee stations in 4 days, not 2 weeks.
My stomach dropped. 4 days? That's not enough time. We're not ready.
"We'll never be ready," Sky said, standing.
But we're ready enough. Gordon, we have to move now. We have to get ahead of the fleet, intercept them before they reach the stations. She was right. Waiting for perfect preparation would just mean more stations burning, more lives lost, more examples made. "April, plot an intercept course," I said. "Get us ahead of the Imperial fleet's lead group. We'll start with the smallest group, better odds, easier for Sky to affect. If it works, we move to the next group. If it doesn't, it will work," Sky said with certainty. "It has to work, because the alternative is unacceptable." That was the conviction of youth combined with the wisdom of ages. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "All right, then let's go save some stations. April, maximum speed." The stars stretched, and the Wanderer's dream leapt toward confrontation with an Imperial fleet that didn't know it was about to meet something it had no defense against. A child who could touch minds and show them truth. A guardian who had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was trust someone else to be as brave as you needed them to be. And a ship that had been enhanced by beings who understood that the universe needed protectors willing to stand between the innocent and those who would harm them. We were ready. Or we weren't. But either way, we were going. We intercepted the Imperial fleet's first group 18 hours before they would have reached the refugee station at Kalos Point. 12 ships, 4 destroyers, 6 cruisers, 2 support vessels, hanging in the void like instruments of inevitable destruction. "They've detected us. We're being hailed and targeted, weapons charging across all 12 ships." "Let them target," I said. "Sky, are you ready?" She sat in her chair on the bridge, eyes closed, already beginning to glow with that golden dawn light. "I can feel them. Thousands of minds. Some certain, some doubting, some eager to follow orders, some dreading what they've been asked to do." "Focus on the doubters," I said, "the ones already questioning. You don't need to convert the true believers. Just give the doubters clarity and courage." "Incoming fire," April reported. "Impact in 10 seconds. "Shields up," I ordered, "but hold return fire. We're not here to fight. We're here to communicate." The Imperial fleet's opening salvo crashed against our shields with force that would have vaporized most civilian vessels. The Wanderer's dream shuddered, but held. Enhanced architect technology absorbed energies that should have been overwhelming. Shields at 80%. They're preparing another volley, Gordon. At this rate, we have maybe 5 minutes before our shields fail. That's 5 minutes for Sky to work. Sky, now, show them. Show the doubters what they're really doing. Sky's light exploded outward. Not violently, but absolutely. It filled the bridge, then extended beyond, reaching across the void, touching 12 ships simultaneously. I felt it happen through our connection.
felt Sky's consciousness expand to encompass thousands of minds, felt her touching thoughts, showing images, sharing truth. She showed them the refugees at Kalos Point, families who had lost everything, children playing in corridors that smelled of recycled air and fear, elderly colonists who had nowhere else to go. She showed them what an orbital bombardment would do to those families, the flash of heat, the instant of terror, the silence that would follow. She showed them the Retribution's crew, 300 people who had chosen conscience over orders, who were now starting new lives, scared but free, human instead of weapons. And she showed them a choice, not forcing, not controlling, just showing clearly what they were being asked to do and letting them decide who they wanted to be. I watched through our sensors as Sky's light touched ship after ship, watched as weapons that had been charging suddenly powered down, watched as formation integrity broke, ships drifting out of attack pattern. It's working, Gordon. It's actually working. 5 ships have ceased hostile action. 6, 7. Crews are refusing orders. But I was watching Sky more than the tactical display, watching as her small body began to strain under the weight of thousands of minds, watching as tears streamed down her face. Not her tears, I realized, but the collective grief and shame and terror of everyone she was touching. Sky, I said urgently, stay anchored. Remember who you are. Don't get lost in them.
I'm here, she said, but her voice sounded distant.
I'm still me, but Gordon, they're so afraid, so ashamed. They knew what they were doing was wrong, but didn't know how to stop. And now they're terrified of consequences, of what the Empire will do to them, to their families.
Show them they're not alone, I said. Show them the retribution. Show them safe harbors exist. Show them that choosing conscience doesn't have to mean dying for it. Sky's light intensified, and I saw her showing them coordinates, safe stations, independent systems, places where deserters could find sanctuary. She was giving them not just moral clarity, but practical hope. 9 ships have stood down, April reported. 10, 11. Gordon, the entire fleet group is refusing orders. They're powering down weapons. Some are already plotting jump courses away from Imperial space. But Sky was trembling now. Her young body pushed beyond any reasonable limit. Light flickered erratically around her. Her breathing came in gasps. Sky, that's enough, I said. Release them. Come back. You did it. They're standing down. Come back to yourself. Can't, she gasped. Not yet. The last ship, the flagship, the captain. He's different, harder, true believer. He's trying to override his crew, trying to fire anyway. I have to stop him, have to show him. No, I said firmly. Sky, you don't have to convert everyone. Let him go. His crew won't follow him. 11 ships is enough. Release the connection before you lose yourself. But he's going to hurt people, Sky said, and her voice was changing, becoming multiple voices, thousands of voices speaking through one small child. I can feel his intention, his certainty. He'll find another crew, another ship. He'll keep killing until someone stops him. Then we'll stop him another way, I said. But Sky, you need to let go, now. That's an order. Release the connection and come back. For a terrible moment, I thought she wouldn't. Thought she'd continue pushing, continue trying to convert one hardened mind, even as it cost her everything. Then the light began to fade, slowly, reluctantly, but fading. Sky collapsed forward, and I caught her before she could hit the console. She was unconscious, her breathing shallow, her young face pale and drawn. Medical scan, I demanded. April, is she all right? Vitally, she's stable, but Gordon, her neural activity is strange, like her consciousness is still partially dispersed, still connected to some of the minds she touched. She's coming back, but slowly. I held her close, feeling helpless in ways I hadn't felt in centuries. How do we help her? How do we bring her back faster? I don't know, April admitted. Her physiology isn't fully human. The medical scanners can't map what she really is. All we can do is wait and hope she remembers the way home. I carried her to her quarters, laid her on her bed, and sat beside her while her consciousness slowly reassembled itself from the thousands of fragments she'd scattered across 12 ships. And I prayed to architects and ancient beings and anyone who might be listening that I hadn't just made a terrible mistake. That the child I'd asked to touch thousands of minds would remember how to be just one person again. That Sky would come back. Sky remained unconscious for 36 hours. I stayed with her the entire time, watching her breathe, monitoring the strange fluctuations in her energy signature, waiting for some sign that she was finding her way back to herself. April managed the ship, coordinating with the 11 deserter vessels, guiding them towards safe harbors, ensuring the refugee stations knew they'd been spared. The Imperial flagship, the one ship whose captain had refused to stand down, had jumped away, presumably to report what had happened and request reinforcements. We'd bought time, saved thousands of lives, prevented multiple stations from burning, but the costs might have been Sky herself. On the second day, she finally stirred. Her eyes opened, not the golden glow of her power, but her normal ancient eyes, confused and uncertain.
Gordon, where am I?
Your quarters, I said, relief flooding through me, on the Wanderer's dream. You've been unconscious for a day and a half. How do you feel?
Strange, like I'm hearing voices that aren't there, thinking thoughts that aren't mine. I can still feel them. The crews I touched, their fears and hopes and memories. They're still part of me somehow.
That will fade, I said, hoping it was true. Your consciousness scattered when you connected with so many minds. It just needs time to fully reassemble, to remember its boundaries.
But what if it doesn't? Sky asked, fear creeping into her voice. What if I stay like this? Part me, part everyone I touched. What if I can't remember where I end and they begin?
I took her small hands in mine. Then we figure it out, together. Sky, you saved thousands of lives. You gave 11 ships worth of people the courage to choose differently. That was brave, that was important. But you also pushed yourself too far, too fast, and there are consequences for that.
I know, she said quietly. I felt it happening, felt myself dissolving, but I couldn't stop. That last captain, he was so certain, so absolutely convinced that what he was doing was right. I thought if I could just show him, just make him understand.
You can't save everyone, I said gently. You can't fix everyone. Some minds are closed in ways that won't open no matter how much truth you show them. And trying to force them open destroys you both.
I'm learning that, she said, the hard way.
She lay back down, exhaustion still evident despite her brief waking.
Gordon, when I was connected to all those minds, when I was scattered across thousands of consciousnesses, I felt something bigger. Like there's a connection between all living things, a network of consciousness that exists underneath everything. And I was part of it, really part of it. The entity from between galaxies. It showed us something similar. The connections that exist in spaces we think are empty. Maybe consciousness is like that too. Maybe we're all connected in ways we don't normally perceive.
Maybe, Sky agreed. But Gordon, if that's true, if we're all connected like that, then using my powers isn't just touching individual minds, it's touching the whole network, sending ripples through it, affecting things I can't see or predict.
That's a sobering thought, I said.
Yeah, Sky agreed. It is.
She closed her eyes again, not sleeping, but retreating inward, trying to sort through the tangle of thoughts and feelings that weren't entirely her own anymore. I left her to rest and returned to the bridge where April waited with updates. The deserter ships are safely away, she reported, scattered across 6 different systems. The Empire will have trouble tracking them all. The refugee stations are implementing better security protocols, and we've received a message
From who? I asked. From Lieutenant Chen, from the Retribution. He says more deserter ships are joining him. Word is spreading about what happened, about the ships that refused orders and lived. He's forming some kind of fleet, wants to know if we'll provide support. A fleet of deserters. Imperial ships turning against the Empire. It was exactly what we needed, but also potentially disastrous. Tell him we'll provide what support we can, I said, but they need to understand the Empire will escalate. This isn't just desertion anymore. This is open rebellion. The consequences will be severe. He knows, April said. They all know, but they're doing it anyway. Sky showed them truth. Now they can't unsee it. That was the double-edged sword of revelation. Once you knew something, once you really understood it, you couldn't go back to comfortable ignorance. Sky had given those crews clarity, but clarity came with responsibility. The responsibility to act on what you knew. How many ships total? I asked. 15 as of last count, 3 more expressing interest. If this continues, we could have a real force, enough to protect refugee stations, maybe enough to make the Empire think twice about their scorched earth tactics, or enough to trigger a full-scale civil war. I didn't say that out loud, but April knew. She always knew what I was thinking. What do we do? She asked. I thought about Sky, recovering in her quarters, still sorting through thousands of minds she'd touched. I thought about hope and the scattered colonists and the stations that would burn if we didn't stop the Imperial fleets. I thought about the architects and their mission and the responsibility of guardianship. We keep going, I said finally. We intercept the next fleet group. We give Sky time to recover first. I won't risk her like that again. But then we continue. We show more crews the truth, give more people the chance to choose differently. And if that means we accidentally start a civil war, then we deal with that, April finished. Gordon, you realize this is bigger than rescuing colonies now. This is changing the fundamental power structure of the sector. I know, I said, and that scares me. But the alternative is letting the Empire continue murdering anyone who defies them. I can't do that, won't do that. Then we're committed, April said. All the way. No turning back. No turning back. I agreed. Sky appeared in the bridge doorway looking fragile but determined. I heard. And you're right. We can't turn back. Gordon, I know I pushed too hard. I know I scared you, but I also know what we did mattered. 11 ships full of people who chose conscience over cruelty. That's worth the risk. Not if it costs you yourself, I said. Sky, you're not expendable. You're not a weapon to be used up and discarded. You're a person. You matter as much as anyone you're trying to save. I know, she said, and I promise to be more careful, to not push so far next time, to remember my limits. But Gordon, we have to keep going. We have to give more people the chance to choose. She was right. She was absolutely right. And I hated that she was right because it meant putting her at risk again. But that was guardianship. That was the responsibility I accepted when I became immortal. The burden of making impossible choices and living with the consequences. All right, I said. We rest, we recover, we learn from what happened, and then we intercept the next fleet group. But Sky, slower this time, more careful. We're not trying to save everyone, just enough. Just the ones already questioning. Enough is enough, Sky agreed. April pulled up the tactical display, showing the positions of the remaining Imperial fleet groups. The next group is larger, 18 ships, but they're moving slower, more cautiously. Word of the desertion has reached them. They're afraid. Good, I said. Fear makes people think, makes them question. That's what we need, people who are already questioning. Sky, how long before you think you can do this again, before your consciousness is fully reassembled? A few days, maybe a week. I need time to sort through everything I absorbed, to remember who I am separate from everyone else. But I'll be ready. Then we wait, I said. Use the time to plan, to prepare, to make sure when we do this again, we do it right. We spent 6 days in hiding. tucked into the shadow of a gas giant in an uninhabited system, while Sky reassembled her consciousness and the Empire assembled its response. The reports filtering through independent news channels were grim. The Empire had declared a state of emergency in the sector, martial law in effect. Anyone harboring deserters faced execution. Any station that had given aid to refugees was marked for compliance review, which everyone understood meant destruction. The deserter fleet under Chen's command had grown to 23 ships, not enough to fight the Empire directly, but enough to be noticed, enough to be threatening. And Sky grew stronger each day. I watched her meditate for hours, sorting through the residual thoughts and feelings she'd absorbed from 11 ships' worth of crew, watched her carefully separating what was hers from what belonged to others, watched her learn to maintain boundaries between herself and the collective consciousness she'd touched. "It's like learning to speak again," she told me on the 4th day. "To use just my voice instead of thousands. To think just my thoughts instead of everyone's. It should be easy. I've been myself for longer than human civilization has existed. But after touching that many minds, after feeling what they felt, it's hard to remember that I'm separate, that their pain isn't mine. But it is yours, in a way, because you chose to share it. That's empathy. That's what makes you different from beings who have power but no compassion." "It hurts," she said simply. "Empathy hurts." "Yes," I agreed. "It does." On the 6th day, Sky declared herself ready. We reviewed the plan one more time, simpler than before, more focused. She would target only the crew members already on the edge of desertion, the ones whose doubt was strongest. She wouldn't try to convert everyone, wouldn't push herself past safe limits. "And if you start to feel yourself scattering," I said, "you pull back immediately. I don't care if we're 90% successful. I don't care if we're one mind away from total conversion. If you start to lose yourself, you retreat. Understood?" "Understood," Sky said. April plotted an intercept course for the 2nd Imperial Fleet Group, 18 ships moving cautiously toward a cluster of refugee stations. We'd arrive ahead of them, force them to choose, hopefully add more deserters to Chen's growing fleet, hopefully prevent more massacres. The Wanderer's dream emerged from hiding and accelerated toward confrontation. We found the Imperial fleet exactly where April's projections had predicted. 18 ships in tight defensive formation, clearly expecting trouble. "They've detected us," April reported, "moving to battle stations. But Gordon, they're not charging weapons. They're waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked. Sky's eyes went distant, her consciousness already reaching out, touching the edges of 18,000 minds. "They're waiting to see what we do, the crews. They've heard about the deserters, about ships that refused orders and lived. They're wondering if we're going to give them the same choice." "Some of them are wondering," I corrected. "Some of them are probably furious that we turned their comrades. Don't assume everyone's open to what you're offering." "I know," she said. "I can feel the differences. Some minds eager, some terrified, some absolutely closed. I'll focus on the eager and terrified. The closed ones, they're not my responsibility." "Good," I said. "Remember your limits. Remember your anchor. I'm here. I'm watching. I'll bring you back if you start to scatter." Sky nodded and closed her eyes. Light bloomed around her, more controlled this time, more purposeful. She'd learned from the first attempt. Her consciousness expanded outward, touching ship after ship, but this time she was selective. I could feel through our connection as she brushed against minds, identified which ones were receptive, which ones were searching for reasons to refuse. She touched maybe a third of the crews, showed them the truth she'd shown the others, the refugees they'd been ordered to attack, the deserters who had chosen differently, the safe harbors that existed for those brave enough to choose conscience. But she also showed them something new, something I hadn't expected. She showed them me. I felt it happen, Sky reaching into my mind,
not invasively, but gently, taking memories and experiences and sharing them with 18,000 people simultaneously. She showed them Meridian Deep, the archives I'd protected, the keepers who had trusted me. She showed them the Poison Sky Colony, the entity we'd helped return home, the moment of connection between species separated by galaxies. She showed them hope, the small girl who had trusted a guardian, who had dreamed of becoming someone who helped people. She was showing them why guardianship mattered, why choosing conscience over cruelty was worth any cost. "Gordon," April said urgently, "weapons powering down across the fleet, ships breaking formation, it's working. But Gordon, one ship is different, the flagship again. It's accelerating, moving to ramming speed. They're going to try to physically destroy us." "Evasive maneuvers," I ordered. "Get us clear." "Can't," April said. "They're matching our movements. They've locked on to our position. Impact in 40 seconds. Sky, can you reach them? Can you stop them?" But Sky was deep in her connection with the other ships, her consciousness scattered across 17 vessels. She couldn't withdraw fast enough to redirect. 30 seconds, April warned. I made a choice. Maybe the wrong choice. Maybe the only choice. "April, target their engines. Disable only. Don't destroy." "Firing," April confirmed. Our weapons lanced out with surgical precision, striking the flagship's engine ports. The explosions were controlled, carefully modulated to disable without killing. The flagship's acceleration died. The ship drifted, powerless but intact. "Impact avoided," April reported. "Their engines are gone, but life support is stable. Crew is unharmed." "Sky, release the connection. Come back. It's done." Sky's eyes opened, and this time she was fully present, tired but not scattered. She'd stayed anchored, maintained her sense of self even while connected to thousands. 17 ships stood down, she said. 17 ships chose conscience, the flagship, and we stopped them without killing anyone. That's the best outcome we could hope for. But they're still out there, the true believers, the ones who won't be convinced. What do we do about them? We can't save everyone, can't fix everyone. Some people choose cruelty consciously with full knowledge of what they're doing. Those people, we stop them however we can, but we don't let them make us cruel in return. A comm signal came through from one of the 17 ships that had stood down. A woman's voice, steady and clear. "Wanderer's Dream, this is Captain Arya Voss of the Imperial Cruiser Determination. On behalf of my crew and the crews of 17 other vessels, we're formally requesting to join the deserter fleet. We won't fire on refugees, we won't slaughter innocents. We're done being the Empire's weapons." "Request granted," I said, transmitting coordinates to rendezvous with the fleet under Lieutenant Chen's command. "Welcome to the Rebellion." "The Rebellion," she repeated, and I could hear her smile. I liked the sound of that. Determination out. Sky was smiling too, exhausted but genuine. 23 deserter ships before, 17 more now, 40 ships total. That's a real fleet. That's a real threat to the Empire. They won't ignore this. They can't. And Sky, what we've started here, it's going to escalate. The Empire will send more ships, better ships. They'll start targeting us specifically. "I know," she said. "But Gordon, we gave those people a choice. That matters, even if it makes things harder for us." She was right. She was absolutely right. And I was never more terrified of what came next.
We were heading toward the third and largest Imperial fleet group, 30 ships this time, the Empire's strongest response, when the call came. Not from Chen's deserter fleet, not from refugee stations, from the Poisoned Sky Colony, from Yuki. "Gordon, we need help." Her voice was tight with panic. "Something's wrong. The colony world. The atmosphere is failing again, but it's different this time. Faster, worse. And Gordon, people are dying."
My blood ran cold. How is that possible? We fixed the processors. We removed the entity. The systems were stable. They were, Yuki confirmed. But something new has arrived. Something that looks like the entity, but isn't. It's aggressive, hostile. It's not just interfacing with the processors. It's weaponizing them, turning them against us. We tried to evacuate, but the transport Hope was on. Her voice broke. Gordon, the transport Hope was on exploded during launch. The entity targeted it specifically, overloaded their engines. Everyone aboard. Gordon, they're gone. Hope is gone. I felt Sky's reaction before I heard it. A sound that wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a sob. Pure anguish given voice. No, Sky breathed. No, 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 not Hope. Not her. She was innocent. She was good. She was... Light exploded from Sky's small body. Not the controlled golden dawn light I'd come to recognize, but something else. Something raw and terrible, and absolutely beyond restraint. Sky, no, I shouted, don't! Too late. Sky's power erupted outward, unfocused and absolute. The Wanderer's dream's lights flickered. Systems screamed warnings. Reality itself seemed to bend around her grief and rage. April, containment, now! I shouted. Working, April said, her voice strained. But Gordon, her power output is exceeding anything we've seen. I can't... The bridge went dark, then brilliant white, then colors that had no names, energy states that shouldn't exist, reality fracturing and reforming around a child who just learned the cruelest lesson of immortality. Everyone you love will die, sometimes horribly, sometimes unfairly, and there's nothing your power can do to stop it. Through the chaos, I could feel Sky's consciousness expanding, not carefully like before, not with control or purpose, but explosively, touching everything within range. Planets, stars, ships, life, all of it. And in her grief, she was changing things. Not deliberately, not consciously, but fundamentally. I fought through the reality distortion, grabbing her, pulling her close, anchoring her the only way I knew how, with presence, with certainty, with absolute refusal to let her get lost. Sky, I shouted over the sound of reality tearing. I'm here. Follow my voice. Come back. She's dead, Sky sobbed. Hope is dead, and I could have saved her. I could have protected her. I could have... You couldn't, I said harshly. You weren't there. You didn't know. You can't protect everyone. You can't save everyone. And trying will destroy you. Then let it destroy me, Sky screamed. What good is power if I can't save one little girl who just wanted to be my friend? The power isn't good for that, I said, still holding her tight. Power doesn't prevent loss. It doesn't make the people you love immortal. It just makes you more aware of how fragile everything is. Sky, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry Hope is gone, but you have to let her go. You have to accept that she's gone. No, Sky thrashed in my arms, power still cascading from her body. I can fix this, like with Kale. I can bring her back. I can reach across death and trap her soul somewhere it doesn't belong, and create something that looks like Hope but isn't really her, and spend the rest of your existence watching that wrong thing and knowing you made it. Sky, you learned this. You understood this. Death has meaning. Death is part of the story. You can't erase it just because it hurts. But it hurts so much, Sky sobbed, and finally, her power began to contract, to pull back, to return to something like control. Gordon, it hurts so much. I know it does. And it's going to keep hurting.
That's the cost of caring. That's the price of letting people matter. But Sky, you don't have to carry this alone. I'm here. April's here. The people you saved are here. You're not alone in your grief. Sky collapsed against me, her power finally contained, her small body racked with sobs that came from a soul older than human civilization, learning the same lesson mortal children learned every day. That love means eventual loss. That caring means eventual grief. That the price of meaning is pain. As she cried, I looked at the damage her uncontrolled power had caused. The Wanderer's dream systems were coming back online, but April's expression was grave. "Gordon," she said quietly, "when Sky's power erupted, it affected everything. I'm reading changes across multiple systems, planets with altered orbits, stars with modified output, ships whose crews just experienced massive psychological events. She touched thousands of systems, millions of minds, all in the span of 30 seconds. Did she hurt anyone?" I asked. "I don't think so," April said. "But she changed them, made them feel her grief, her rage, her loss. Everyone within light years just experienced what she was experiencing. And Gordon, some of them are responding." She pulled up communications traffic. Hundreds of messages, thousands, all saying essentially the same thing. "We felt it. We felt her pain. What happened? How can we help?" Empathy on a cosmic scale. Sky's grief shared so widely that strangers across star systems wanted to help, wanted to comfort, wanted to make things better. It was beautiful and terrible in equal measure. "What do we do?" April asked. I looked at Sky, still sobbing in my arms, learning how to carry loss that would never fully heal. "We go back," I said, "to the poisoned Sky colony. We face whatever's there. We stop it from hurting anyone else. And Sky," I tilted her tear-streaked face up to meet mine, "you learn that grief doesn't mean surrender, that losing someone you love doesn't mean giving up on everyone else. Hope would want you to keep being a guardian, to keep helping people, to honor her memory by saving others." Sky nodded slowly, understanding cutting through her pain. "You're right. I know you're right. But Gordon, I don't want to be brave right now. I don't want to be wise or powerful or special. I just want to cry for my friend." "Then cry," I said gently. "Cry as long as you need to. And when you're ready, we'll face what comes next together." So she cried, and I held her, and the Wanderer's dream turned toward the poisoned Sky colony, toward whatever hostile entity had killed Hope and hundreds of others, toward another confrontation, another impossible choice, another lesson in the cost of guardianship. We were coming, and when we arrived, something would answer for what it had done.
There are lessons you can't teach. Lessons people have to learn through experience, through pain, and through loss that cuts deep enough to leave a scar. Sky learned that day that power doesn't prevent grief, that being ancient doesn't make you immune to heartbreak, that you can save worlds and still lose the one person who mattered most. She learned that love is dangerous, that caring is a risk, that letting people matter means eventually watching them die. But she also learned something else, something more important, that grief doesn't have to mean surrender, that loss doesn't have to mean giving up, that the pain of caring is proof that you're still alive, still human in the ways that matter, still choosing connection despite knowing how much it will eventually cost. Hope died, but Hope's memory lived on in a star that bore her name,
in a child who would never forget her, in a guardian who understood that every person saved mattered, even if you couldn't save them all. The poison sky would test us again, would demand answers, would require Sky to face her grief and choose whether to let it destroy her or transform her. But that's a story for another time. For now, know this: guardianship isn't about preventing loss. It's about choosing to care despite inevitable loss. About being brave enough to love, knowing that love means eventual grief. Sky learned that the hard way, and she's still learning. We all are.